Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Health and Healing module of the Sovereignty Project. I am pumped to share this information with you today. We are going to be reframing what it means to be healthy in the 21st century. We are up against some different things these days than most people have been, and it's important to know what I'm going to show you. So, I'm going to show you how to be confident in your ability to take care of yourself outside the medical system, right? This project's all about sovereignty and making sure that people can't dictate things to us. So, the freedom to question everything is an important part of this module and this program in general. I want you to feel like you can question everything. So one of the most freeing and sobering aspects of COVID is that really it gave us permission to question narratives we never thought to question. And I think we can all agree that commercial interests have worked to shape our perception of reality. They want us to see the world through a particular lens, and what COVID has exposed really is how organized and thorough some of these interests have become. So you've probably heard the expression, history is written by the victors. Well, another truth is that the systems that govern societies also get to be set up by the victors or by the people who have money. So when I was planning this, I came across this quote, and it says this: "We become slaves the moment we hand over the keys to the definition of reality entirely over to someone else, whether it is a business, an economic theory, a political party, the White House, News World, or CNN." And I would add a biological perspective to that list of great things he talked about there. So before we get to a better version of health, I want to first step back and see where have we handed over the definition of reality to commercial interests. And to do that, I want to take you back to 1910. So here is who we've allowed to define reality since 1910. In that year, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies got together and they hatched a plan to monopolize public health. So they kicked it off with what's called the Flexner Report, which was a clever and sinister way to shut down every competing healing modality of the day and to pivot Western societies to a standardized chemical-based form of healthcare that was called allopathy. It still is today. Allopathy comes from two Greek words. It means other suffering. We're going to take the suffering that you have and we're going to layer on top of it some other suffering. So hopefully you don't notice the suffering you have. That's the methodology of allopathy. And what's important, why I italicized the word standardized, is because what was the genius of Rockefeller was that he had a business called Standard Oil. He had figured out how to standardize oil and how to make it into a commodity that could be depended upon for all these different engines. They would all run if the oil met spec, if it was standardized and was consistent across the board. And so he applied that in his gigantic amount of wealth to saying, what if we were to turn over healthcare to a standardized chemical-based, literally petroleum-based approach to healthcare, where we could standardize it, call it scientific. And that was what became the Flexner Report, where they basically tried to shut down every other competing healing modality and push them out of mainstream. So standardized thinking met science in the Flexner Report, and explaining these next few bullets to people sometimes is like trying to explain water to a fish. It's just the culture we have swimmed in for so long, and it's, well, of course these are kind of the way things are. So we are taught our whole lives, we've been lied to, and we're told science will help us find a pill or a drug for every ill. You should be afraid of germs. In fact, we're actually at war with germs. Sickness or depression or anxiety, that just represents a chemical imbalance. And if you get sick, you need to be poisoned, cut, or burned. They don't actually say it that way, but after all of the fancy testing is over that Western medicine can do, what we're left with is poison, drugs. We can cut on you, and if you're, now this isn't a trauma or they're stitching your bone back together. If it's just a regular degenerative condition, we just cut on you, we do surgery, and we take your parts out and we throw them in the trash. Or we could burn you. We could use radiation to kill particular parts of something that may be growing inside you that we don't think should be. After all the fancy testing's over, that's what we're left with allopathic care. Alternative modalities are kind of risky and they're not evidence-based, right? That's another lie we've been told our whole lives. And then science will eventually find a cure for cancer and heart disease and diabetes, and pick your cause. We're just going to keep walking and raising money, and we just trust us a little bit longer. Science is going to find this cure. That's what we've been told our whole lives. Well, here's the problem though with health, is that you can't standardize it, right? Trying to teach people that we can't standardize health is that water to a fish moment, right? So where standardized thinking has led us is that we've believed the lie that we need fancy lab tests and expert specialists to take care of our health. We've been led to doubt our intuition because we're not smart enough or we're not educated enough to actually understand what's really going on. And so we just need to turn over our sense of agency about our bodies to people who have spent their lives studying it. And we've accepted the paradigm that without highly profitable drugs, petroleum-based chemicals, and as where it started, or surgeries paid for by highly profitable health insurance companies, which we fund, that we can't be healthy. That's just the paradigm of the medicine that we live in this country, or in any Western country. And we're stuck in a reductionist way of thinking about healing. Because of that, we've lost sight of what health is, and we think inside a very small box of what we can do to actually work on our health. So today I'm going to just try to blow that box open and reshape how you think about health. So one place we have collectively lost our way and been duped on a mass scale is with something called the germ theory. You've probably heard of this, but the germ theory goes like this. Microorganisms known as pathogens or germs can lead to disease. These small organisms, too small to see without magnification, invade humans, animals, and other living hosts. Their growth and reproduction within the host can cause disease. That's the whole theory. There's these tiny little microscopic boogeymen out there, and they're looking for a chance to get inside you, and they're going to replicate, and they're going to take down your health. And we should be at war with these things because that's what causes poor health. Okay, so here are some different ways to look at this puzzle. Did you know some interesting facts about viruses? You have never in your life seen a video of a virus. You have only seen animations or artist renderings, like the artist rendering on the screen in front of you now. You may have seen pictures like this. These are always out of focus, two-dimensional, still images that they will tell you, oh, here is a virus. Can't really tell what it is. Nothing's moving. What exactly are we looking at? Are those little things around the perimeter, are they going in? Are they going out? Where are they coming from? What is actually happening to this dead tissue in some sort of goop that we are looking at with an electron microscope, right? Here's another thing that will probably blow your mind. No virus has ever been isolated as the causative agent of disease. So if this is new to you, you're probably scratching your head and you're already starting to get that skeptical bone in your body. So stick with me, question everything, including what I say to you. But here's the thing about virology. To my knowledge, it is the only biological science that doesn't use a control group. When they test something, like they'll test what's in that picture there you see, and they will test it and say, oh, yep, sure enough, these dead cells that we've starved and put under a microscope in this goop of different drugs and different chemicals, sure enough, they're breaking down. What they don't do is take those same cells and put them in a different situation and see if the same thing happens. They don't have to do that in virology. There's no control groups inside that discipline. So that might raise some important questions, right? What exactly, if I'm onto something, what exactly is COVID? If viruses don't exist, they don't cause disease, then what in the world have we been living through? What then are antibodies? What is gain of function research? What do antiviral drugs actually do? What am I actually testing positive for if I get a positive test? How do virologists identify and classify virus? This is the question they don't want you to ask. If you go back or you study how virologists do this, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. These are not the droids you're looking for. Don't ask that question. That is not what you're supposed to be asking us. So another question we could ask is, well, what about the plagues? What about the Spanish flu and polio and measles? Like, obviously something's creating these situations. What about flu season and common colds that we all seem to catch at the same time, right? If you have had any of those questions listening to me, those are brilliant questions. So rather than go and deep dive and answer all of them, in this presentation, I'm just going to help you. I'm going to first give you a spoiler alert. Viruses are actually exosomes. They are a communication language. They are information. They are biological system updates from cells, what's going on in the world. So the book I'll point you to, part of our curriculum for this month, is the book, The Contagion Myth. There's also a documentary called Terrain that I will as you read it, it will help you answer all of these questions that I just asked you on the screen. Very likely to blow your mind. Another interesting fact about this book is that you can't get it on Amazon. So anytime Amazon or big tech bans something, that's how you know you're usually right over the target. So here's the question. If viruses don't exist, if contagion cannot explain sickness, then we have to look for different explanations for what makes us sick, don't we? Okay? So before we get to what makes us sick, we first have to step back and get outside of this paradigm we've been in and say, well, what exactly is health? So if you do that, and you go to the dictionary, you'll get stupid definitions like this: freedom from symptoms or a named disease. All right, that would be like asking me to describe a football, and you're like, well, a basketball is not a football. I'm like, okay, great. That freedom from symptoms or named disease is just telling you what something is not. It's not telling you what it is. The closest a dictionary will get is usually something like soundness of body and mind, which what in the world does that mean? Who of us is going to say, I don't have soundness in my body or my mind, right? It's just such an amorphous thing. We've so poorly defined health as a society that we don't even know what we're aiming at. So let me attempt to do a little bit better job. Here's a little bit longer definition of what health actually is. We could argue that health is having no chronic aches or pains, a healthy body fat percentage. It could be having good vision, shiny hair, and radiant skin. It could be no trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. How about having healthy esteem of yourself and of others? How about having strong muscles and joints that work well? How about energy for all required activities and a surplus for recreation? How about rarely catching a cold and having no problem with allergies? How about good memory and clear thinking and a strong ability to focus? How about no digestive discomfort and the experience of daily comfortable elimination? How about participating in regular and spontaneous outbreaks of humor and laughter? That would be healthy. How about being free from unstable emotion and from intense cravings for food, drugs, or alcohol? Having good communication skills to express your innermost thoughts and feelings. That would also be healthy. Or having the courage to be vulnerable and the wisdom to know where and when to do so. And look at that list. That is what health is. And I don't know about you, but I have some work to do. That is what it means to be healthy. And if we started looking at health through a lens like that, we could start to say, where are we not doing a good job? What other things might we adjust about how we're living? So I want to try to help you find a more helpful framework. So if you've been around our business for any length of time, you have no doubt seen this visual. But I want to introduce those of you who are unfamiliar with it to what we call the biological laws of physics. So this is our what we call synergy symbol. The first aspect of the biological laws of physics, the things we all have to practice, the first one is your mind and emotions. If your mind is negative and you're constantly stressed about about the past or the future, you're going to have a hard time being healthy. Exercise and movement are obviously pretty self-explanatory. Those are a key component of health. Hydration and nutrition, stress management, restorative health care, and sleep, rest, and play. And then finally, that big circle around the perimeter is meaningful connection. So those 7 elements, those are what we call the biological laws of physics. I have never shown this visual to someone when explaining what health is or what we have to practice, the laws we're beholden to. And they said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's health, right? And so here's the important part is that we can't out exercise a bad diet, right? You can't drink more water to make up for not sleeping, and so on and so forth. The more we understand that we have to practice these things. So we're going to take it as a given in this program or in this health and healing module that we all understand that a good diet and exercise and sleep and mindset are key components to health. If we are not practicing our basic health habits, then getting in the weeds with home remedies and all the different ways that we can think about trying to give ourselves more of a leg up to be healthy, if we're not good at the basics, we're starting from a bad, faulty position and a perspective that won't actually have a high probability of producing the results we want. All right. So what we're going to focus on in this module in particular are basically the 3 of those 7 aspects. We're going to talk about stress management, and more narrowly, we're going to talk about the stress of inputs that are body burden to our system. We're going to talk about restorative healthcare, or disciplines that we can use to help the body function more optimally. And we're going to talk about meaningful connection. After all, this program is really about building community, about having connection to God and to others and to a purpose. And the more we have that connection, the easier and easier it is for our bodies to be healthy. Okay? So here, can we reduce this complexity that I've just shown you to a lab test, right? Western medicine would like you to think that they can, right? This complexity, this synergy, this symbiosis that we're dealing with is why people can use the same different modality or the same modality and get very different results, right? Health is about synergy. It's about the rising tide of many things that you're doing well and the symbiosis that we're going to talk about a little bit when we get into microbiome. And it's not about a reductionist math equation of an enzyme or a gene that we need to flip on or off, or any number of small little tiny variables that maybe if we get this one right, this enzyme will finally make all of health come back. Now, if we can approach it and understand what health is, and then we can build a framework for how to approach it, we're coming from a much healthier place. With that said, I want to see if I can simplify it even more. So let's build a better framework. So the observable operating system of biology, right? And I say observable because there is a mystery to our existence, to where we came from and who sets the standards for morals and ethics, what happens when we die, and the purpose that is this existence. So I'm going to narrow our focus to the observable operating systems of biology, and we end up with three. So we are biochemical beings, we are bioelectrical beings, and we are microbial. We are this symbiosis of billions of microbes, right? So as we understand the influential relationship of all three of these, we can see, one, where we have these different elements have been leveraged against us, and two, we can build a robust paradigm for health and healing. With that said, biochemical, I'll cover that one first. In this area, good nutrition is your main ally, right? When it comes to biochemistry, often illness and disease is the result of ongoing nutrient depletions that short circuit the ability of the body to function properly, right? Scurvy, beriberi, rickets, they're different examples of just nutrient depletions, right? This is the realm of enzymes and nutrients and natural hormones and phytochemicals, right? It's nature's medicine cabinet. And this is where biochemistry shines. And allopathic medicine only wants you to pay attention to the chemical aspect of physiology, to standardized chemical aspect of physiology. And we're going to fight these bad germs with pills, and we want you to think one molecule at a time. We're going to do this one thing, we're going to do this DNA injection, and we're going to do whatever it is we do, and it's going to be very reductionist and scientific, and they only want you to focus on biochemical. You're not allowed to ask questions outside that realm. The next one is bioelectrical. We've all seen these little balls, them where they're little lightning bolt looking things going through that. You put your hand on it, and suddenly there's a current that knows where you are. You're completing a circuit. Where there is no electricity, there is no life. Every living thing, including our planet, has electricity. The Earth has its own magnetic negative electrical charge. Every biological process that your body runs, including your thought and your emotion, all of your thoughts and all of your emotions have a particular electrical frequency, or you could think of it like an acoustical signature. But the way this started clicking for me, I was lying in bed one night and had my arm up against my ear, and I heard this noise, and then I realized I relaxed my jaw and the noise stopped, right? My point is that whatever your body's doing, whether it's digesting, thinking thoughts, producing a hormone, having an emotion, whatever it is doing has a particular electrical frequency that system or that process runs on. All right. The fact that we have electricity is why MRIs or EKGs or defibrillators work. They rely on the fact that we are electrical in order for those products to actually be effective. Right. We are also a fascinating, jaw-droppingly complex mix of microbes. In a double handful of healthy soil, there are more living organisms than there are people on the planet. There are billions more organisms living in that than there are people. Okay, you are outpopulated by about 10 to 1. For every cell you have in your body, you have about 10 microbes living all over inside your gut, all over your skin, crawling through every single orifice and cell of your body. You have this diverse microbe colony everywhere in the body. And it reminded me of, as I started learning this, I was actually reading Natasha Campbell McBride's book, The Gut and Physiology Syndrome. And she started describing the complexity and breadth of how many different microbes, yeasts and molds and parasites and bacteria, etc., that populate the human body. And I thought of this verse in Genesis 2:7. The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Literally everything that is in the dirt is inside of us. And the idea that we could reduce this jaw-dropping complexity of chemistry and electricity and microbes to the tune of tens of thousands of different species just of bacteria, that is all over inside of us. And we can think that we can do this enzyme, turn this gene on and off, and we can finally fix the human condition. We've completely misframed what health actually is and what influences it. This is why it's so hard for anybody to come up with one therapy that works on everyone, because of this complexity and diversity, right? So here's a sacred truth about life. There can be no life without death. In order for anything on the planet to eat, something else has to die. Whether we're talking eating a carrot or a cow, nothing can live unless it eats something else that just gave up its life to do so. All right. So here's a morbid thought. Someday your body will die, and your death will be the food that brings life to something else, right? The microbes that populate the air, that circle the globe, that are in and on everything, some of them have the role of munching up disease and decay and death. Okay. And when you die, or when anything dies, those microbes go to work, and their job is to recycle and produce life again. So like I just said, there are microbes whose job is to munch up this disease and decay, which leads to an interesting question. One that I'll let you ponder. Does a compost pile have an infection? Right? Or is a compost pile just doing what is supposed to happen when there is rot? Okay, instead of the war on germs, what if we approached health more like tending a garden instead of fighting a battle? Right? What if you saw your body not as an adversary, germs are not an adversary, but you saw them actually as your ally? And what if we viewed sickness, illness, as feedback that something is out of balance, right? What if we thought about health in terms of chemical, electrical, and microbial? All right. So with that lens, let's try to start reframing sickness a little bit. If microbes are not what makes us sick, then what does? Right? First would be trauma. Pretty obvious. You fall off a bike, get hit by a bus. Your body's not going to appreciate that very much, right? Malnutrition, like I mentioned earlier, different diseases can be correlated with just nutrient deficiencies. Our bodies don't have the raw materials they need to function, and they start to break down. That tissue starts to degrade. The other one would be mindset. So mental or emotional toxins, things that build up in our body, would do it. And then finally, poison, right? That would obviously be something that would make us sick. And we could think in terms of chemical poisons, but we could also think in terms of electrical poison. Okay. So what is missing from that list? You might have guessed it. Contagion, right? Contagion is not what makes you sick. And I can't wait for you to watch the documentary and read the book and actually look at the efforts to prove contagion and find out that they can't, right? So we're going to try to reframe sickness. I get a little bit more specific. So if germs are not to blame, then here sickness or catching a cold is really it's an early warning system from the body. It's feedback that it's under stress and it's got a battle on its hands. It's trying to clean something up, right? It is evidence of detoxification and internal cleaning and rebalancing of the internal ecosystem. And I think of these now as when I catch a cold, so to speak, I think of it as a scheduled or unscheduled detox. I can do a scheduled detox where I help give my body a little extra ability to purge, or I can have an unscheduled detox where my body lets me know, sorry, the bucket's full. We're going to have to actually start to purge this now, and you're not going to like it, but we have to get this out and rebalance the internal ecosystem here. So sickness is an indication that your body is taking on more burden at once than it can offload. And ongoing or chronic health conditions are a symptom of overworked purging systems resulting in systemic inflammation, right? Inflammation is just this constant process. In other words, it's a sign that your specialized cleanup crew, i.e. your immune system, never gets a break. The inputs exceed the ability to offload it, and you end up feeling sick. So infection then is a response to dead or diseased tissue. It is not the cause of it, right? Maggots did not kill the dog or the roadkill on the side of the road, right? They are a response to death that already happened. So think again in terms of compost. The organisms that clean up death, when there's death, they show up and they seemingly take over this thing, but they weren't the cause of the sickness, right? So let me simplify it one layer more. So imagine all these holes in the bucket here are the different purging systems that you have in your body, right? There's inputs coming constantly into this bucket, and your liver, your skin, your hair, your lymphatic system, your bowels, respiratory system, urinary tract, immune system, and your emotions are all ways to get things out of your body. When you're in tears, when you're crying, when you're distressed, your body literally feels that, and it will clog up your sinuses and it will create tears. And it is attempting to purge negative emotion. It is trying to get things out of your body that create an unhealthy internal ecosystem, right? So if we can think of that and we can start to think, well, what are the inputs that we are taking in and how well are any of these purging systems working? And so as we go through this, you'll see more and more how we can improve our body's purging systems in the months ahead. So what inputs are filling our bucket? Well, if we don't understand what the toxic inputs are, then we're going to end up looking for the wrong solutions. So here's an uncomfortable truth. We are being intentionally and unintentionally poisoned on the regular. So Catherine Austin Fitts talks about what she calls the great poisoning, and she describes that as basically since the 1990s, there has been a dramatic ramp up. You look at the disease tables and body burden and all the different maladies that we have suffer from today. In the 1990s, they all shot up dramatically. We have been poisoned through a dispersion of industrial chemicals in the air, the airwaves, the water, and the food. So here are a few examples. We have fluoride. It's an industrial waste product that they sold to us as good for our teeth. Where do we put this? I don't know. Put it in the water. Like that's literally cancer. There's a statement by the lead researcher of fluoride at the National Cancer Institute, and he said there's nothing he's seen that causes more cancer or causes it faster than fluoride. So if you have fluoride in your toothpaste or mouthwash, get rid of it, right? Medications are another example of things that are poisons. EMF poisoning, electromagnetic frequencies is what EMF stands for. GMOs, genetically modified organisms, that they like to splice these chimeric, basically combine different species into one thing, make corn, have the chemical properties of something else, and then we spray pesticides on it to make it grow. Bioweapons like SARS and anthrax and smallpox, and an aggressive vaccine schedule full of heavy metals and other toxins, mercury, formaldehyde, aluminum, etc. in vaccines. This started in earnest in the 1990s, right? And we have conveniently blamed contagion for what is actually industrial pollution. Okay, so how does this poisoning impact our cells? Well, glyphosate and a myriad of other chemicals or drugs, basically every single classification of drugs does something like this to human cells. So here's a picture of cells, and you can see those green lines are the tight junctions. Those cells have a good bond where they're able to cling and stay together, and the liver cells know to stay together and be a liver, or the tube that is your digestive tract gets to maintain the integrity of that wall and protect whatever is in that tube, or keep whatever's in that tube from spilling out into the blood. When glyphosate in particular hits it on this picture right here, all they did was put glyphosate on those tight junctions and it just obliterated them. Right? So picture that inside your gut. In the food you eat, or the chemicals you ingest, the stuff that hits your skin, there are chemicals in them that blow apart the ability of the cells to maintain the tension that holds them together, and it completely disrupts the microbial communication that your cells would normally have. Okay? That's just one of the myriad of ways that this poisoning is impacting us. But a short version of this is if you do not have a highly effective or efficient gut, you could have any number of health problems because the leak that then happens from the intestinal wall, you start to poison yourself with whatever else enters your body, not least of which is just food particles that shouldn't be in your blood. Okay? So there are also other applications of spraying. It's not just crop dusting. This is a picture of chemtrails. So interestingly, just a few weeks ago, I came across this, not this particular sentence, but the idea that weather modification doesn't exist or is just the stuff of conspiracy theory is hilarious. It has been around for about 80 years. So a couple weeks ago, I came across this report on CNN. Scientists in the U.S. are flying planes into clouds to make it snow. And then here's the text. I think this was on Instagram somewhere. CNN, with 61% of the contiguous U.S. in drought, wouldn't it be nice if we could just make it rain or make it snow? Well, certain parts of the country are doing just that, sort of. It's called cloud seeding, and it's nothing new. It's been around since the 1940s, and countries all over the world have been doing it for various reasons, most notably China. But it's a growing practice in the U.S., especially in the drought-stricken West. It's also surrounded with controversy. No duh. You can read more about it at Weather Modification International. So there's a name for this is stratospheric aerosol injection. So a lot of questions we could ask for this, but here's one. What's that? What are you actually spraying? it turns out aluminum is one of the ingredients being sprayed into the air to help modify the weather. And if you know anything about aluminum, it is a highly neurotoxic metal. You want to have a brain that's functioning well, you don't want aluminum in your body, and they are spraying it in the air on the regular. And so I'm going to start put together a few other pieces here. So it's also possible to make it not rain with weather modification. And in case you orient yourself here, that's the west coast of the United States. That's the kind of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. That is a completely unnatural high pressure dome that is keeping clouds from being able to penetrate that area of the globe. How in the world, it's almost like a reverse hurricane, right? Like it's where the hurricane would be, but it's not there. How in the world do you do something like that? You do something like that with what's called sea-based X-band radar. How in the world that thing even floats, I don't know. But you take these out to sea and you put them wherever you want them, and you can tell the clouds to show up or not show up. You can keep clouds from being able to go across the earth in massive sections of the earth. Okay, with that in mind, we have to ask this question. We can't be scared about the implications of it. We have to at least face the possibility that maybe someone might use this for something we wouldn't be hoping they would do with it. Could this technology be used for nefarious purpose? Well, in 1996, the Air Force put out a paper talking about using weather as a force multiplier and owning the weather basically by 2025. So knowing that the Air Force has been talking about this and using it, and then looking at this headline, I found this headline, the same one I found that one from CNN, where they're talking about, look at how we can spray in the air and make it snow. Citing drought, U.S. won't give California farmers water, right? This was last month. So, or 2 months, February. So California, in case you didn't know, produces, according to that first paragraph there, 25% of the nation's food comes from California. But we can't let farmers have water in California right now because there's environmental laws. It's just, there's not enough water. If we have the ability to make it rain and we're not doing it, you have to say, could somebody be manipulating this, right? California and the West Coast is one of the most heavily sprayed areas for this technology. Why then are they experiencing extended droughts and raging forest fires? Could that be intentional? Why do I bring this up? There's two things really. There's political footballs, right? Climate is a political football. No matter what you're talking about it, there's people that want you to perceive reality a specific way. And the second thing is that weather manipulation has major impacts on our chemistry, on our electricity, and on the microbial aspects of health. You can't spray that much aluminum into the air and blot out the sun and not have impacts on all three major systems that under the operating systems of life, right? You may also have heard of or not heard of, this is called the HAARP program, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. This is a amazingly intricate ability to, they built this field out in northern Alaska near the magnetic North Pole. And this allows them to broadcast a frequency up into the stratosphere, and they can actually connect it with Earth's magnetic field and then broadcast a signal anywhere on the entire planet, including to submarines in the ocean. This is often on, again, funded, controversial project, but it is there and has this capability. It can do stuff like this. It'll tap into the magnetic field going around the Earth, and then you'll see, if you watch, there's the documentary I'll show you here is called The Dimming. It's in the members area. It's one that I recommend you watch. It's free on YouTube. And this is just a clip from, it's obviously at minute 49. You can see them talk about this. Rain clouds don't turn right angles. They show you different clips of news anchors that were in the military or that know what's going on. They're like, yeah, this is, the Air Force is out doing something again, because this isn't how clouds naturally do anything. Clouds do not go around a right angle in a large area like that unless we are doing something to prevent them from doing that. Okay? So, could this technology be used nefariously? I think so. Might these technologies be used to evoke scarcity and doomsday language and manufacture a climate crisis? I'm telling you this because I don't want them to be able to frame reality and tell you something else is happening when actually we don't know what's going on. So Prince Charles recently just said we need a warlike effort to fight climate change, right? There's this existential threat to our the whole existence of humanity, and we're going to have to get governments to come in and stop it, right? So the Council for Foreign Relations recently discussed using these techniques to blot out the sun. And Bill Gates says we can, if we do a good enough job keeping the sun from coming down and warming up the planet, we can buy ourselves another 20 or 30 years to get our act together, right? There are people that would like to use this technology, the ability to manipulate weather and to make it rain or not rain wherever they want for political purposes. Okay, so there are also military grade uses for this EMF technology, right? Here are just some of the existing ones. HARP, which is the picture of what you're seeing here. There's also LRAD, which stands for Long Range Acoustic Devices. And just like the one that was used in Canberra, Australia, back I think it was in February at a massive vaccine mandate protest. And there were multiple reports of people having all sorts of burns and skin issues all over their bodies. Now, supposedly LRAD is just acoustic, like it can blow up your hearing. It's great for crowd control. You can just empty a crowd real quickly by blowing up their ears. But there was some other plausible explanation for the number of people who had burns all over their bodies. And I would be more skeptical of that reporting if I didn't have a client or two who live in Australia, who have family members that went to that rally and were also burned. They also had health problems after that event. So there are other technologies that exist, like dielectric heating, which is basically microwaving your skin. There's acoustic hailing and disruption devices. That's somehow, I don't know how they do it, prevent people from talking, which is amazing. And then there's things like airborne lasers, which look like this. They can use that directed energy weapon and make particular things happen. The military has this non-lethal weapon. They call it the active denial system, which is that what you see mounted on that truck there. If you want to type that in and look it up on YouTube, you can watch the video where they talk about it. But it's a way to, it basically instantly makes someone feel highly uncomfortable, more like microwaving their skin. And with technologies like this, you can also do things like microwave trees, right? Trees don't do that naturally from the inside. A fire from the outside might burn it down, but that is not natural, okay? Question everything, right? In the wrong hands, this could get really ugly. So I debated whether or not to show you this, but I want to make sure that we get to frame reality, that we have the right questions when we understand that this technology is out here. So forest fires that can melt steel and level homes, but leave trees by themselves, right? That's totally legit. Look at these. These are, you can type in search engine HARP and forest fires or something like that, and you'll get pictures like this, right? How in the world are houses able to be burnt down to ash? It's not like you see it. You've seen other forest fires where the people are kind of walking through the wreckage of their home. There's nothing here. It is just ash. Yet the trees are fine. How in the world do trees survive what they would tell you was a forest fire, right? So there's a level of, creepy scariness to this. I'm going to leave you there, but I think it would be foolish of us to not know this exists and for us to be able to just go, oh yeah, climate change, oh, forest fire, and not know that technologies that not only are bad for our health are also able to be weaponized for political purposes. And just in case you didn't catch the cars in that picture, here's another picture. So how is it that this car, like, to melt steel and turn it into liquid takes a ridiculously concentrated amount of heat? So how is it that the car is melted to the road and all the trees around it are fine? There was no fire that was anywhere near that, just the car, right? Those are the kind of things that could be done with these technologies, to know they exist and then to be wise as serpents as we go through this upcoming decade and do our best to have sovereignty everywhere we go. So that's the heaviest stuff probably in this presentation. So what might non-weaponized everyday EMF technologies be doing to us? So if you were to go you want to go do a search for symptoms of radiation poisoning and just look at around 2 or 3 websites, and what you will find is basically every possible symptom you can think of is a symptom of radiation poisoning. And okay, why would that be? Well, think about the complexity I showed you earlier. Think about the interrelation of these tens of thousands of microbes and this electrical system and chemical system and where you live and what you're exposed to and what thoughts you think and how much exercise you have and water and so on. There's a complexity of, well, where you're weak would determine what kind of symptoms you would manifest from radiation poisoning. So here's just a short list. I just limited myself to 3 columns of 10, right? Nausea, constipation, cramping, insomnia, vomiting, tinnitus, loss of taste, loss of smell. Do those sound familiar lately? dizziness, diabetes, hair loss, tooth decay, dry mouth, sore gums, difficulty swallowing, shortness of breath, loss of appetite, changes in menstruation, sexual problems, cancer, headaches, itching, menopausal symptoms, pneumonia, joint pain, fatigue, skin problems, blood clots, digestive issue, and heart palpitations, just to name a few of the symptoms of radiation poisoning. These are the kind of questions we're not allowed to ask. You lost your taste and smell. Oh, yep. You don't feel well. You got flu-like symptoms. You get any one of this amorphous checklist of problems going. Yep, that you must have COVID, right? How many of these things are really easy to blame on contagion? What if we take contagion off the table and we look for other plausible causes of not feeling well? Especially once you know that viruses and virology is a discipline that would prefer you don't ask tough questions of it. Okay. So the EMF questions that we're not allowed to ask. Could it be that our current EMF technologies are also harmful to our health? Right? In this book, if I haven't done a decent job of piquing your interest and making you want to consider there might be something to this EMF, one of the other books in our core curriculum here is The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg. And what he'll point out is that every rollout of a new electrical technology can be correlated to a new outbreak of disease. This is a fantastic work with so much research. It's got so much detail. Sometimes it's like, okay, you got me. I'm convinced. Like, can we move on? And what you'll find in one of the things he teases out is some of the jaw-dropping moments for me were that all major diseases, including obesity in wild animals, like, they didn't change their diet, right? Changes in the ecosystem and mysterious illnesses can all be seen in a new light when you're allowed to say what was going on in the electrical technologies that were being rolled out. If we're allowed to ask the question, could this be an influential factor, we can come up with completely different perspective and much more plausible answers for why people are getting sick. The easiest example is the Spanish flu. People think that was a contagion, some sort of influenza. No, that was a rollout of a massive scale electrical system, and the human body was not ready for that yet. A lot of people got sick. So living organisms like us can adapt to changes in our environments. That slowly we adapt to this electrical grid. But the faster there is a rollout of a new technology, or a solar flare would do it, that would also could make us quite sick, the more distress and microbial imbalances are caused to biology. Okay, so think about this for a second. How does nature clean up radiation? The short answer is mold. Chernobyl, right? Any time where there's toxicity in this poisoning of nature, mold, of all the things that float through the air and land there that could grow, mold is like, oh, Super Bowl, game on, this is what we're made for. And mold shows up and starts to munch up and clean up and recycle radiation. So think about this, right? The smaller the organism, the more impacted it tends to be. So ants, insects, birds, bees, right? They're all, Arthur Furstenberg talks about them a lot in the book and just shows you how dramatically just turning on Wi-Fi destroys their colonies, right? But our microbiome, okay, think about that. We are the symbiosis of many thousands upon thousands of microbes, and electricity impacts them as well, right? So if we have this stimulus of electromagnetic frequencies going through a body in our microbe, we have disease that kind of becomes systemic. One of the things we have to look at is, okay, what are we exposed to? Well, what technologies are we rolling out right now? Well, 5G, if you've been paying attention during COVID, there was this massively aggressive push to install 5G everywhere. Similar to like with COVID's going on, pay no attention to 5G. Now that the war in Ukraine is going on, pay no attention to COVID. It's like they're shifting our attention. So to understand 5G and electromagnetic frequencies, here's an important point to know. 5G is not about faster internet speeds. That's what they're going to sell it to you as. 5G is really an infrastructure to allow for two things. The first is the Internet of Things, and eventually with the goal of smart cities where every street light and everything is connected and it's just part of this gigantic data harvesting program. And the second thing is the Internet of Bodies. They literally want to connect your body. I talked about this in the webinar leading up to this program. If you haven't seen that, you might check it out. The Internet of Bodies, they literally want to connect and put things inside of you that can be read by this internet that they are building with 5G technology. So a question worth asking is, can this technology be used to interact with jab ingredients? The answer is yes, unfortunately. Look at the patent record. Probably the more important question is, will this technology be used? Hopefully not. We don't know. But If you haven't heard of this little twerp or this little twit, Dr. Yuval Noah Harari is the transhumanist advisor to Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum. I put a link to a JP Sears video in the members area where he talks at JP Sears. I think the title is Klaus Schwab, the most dangerous man in the world. And he is in this. You want to hear this guy talk and talk about how humans are hackable animals, and soon we'll be able to know your thoughts, and we'll be able to tell if you're not in line with our thinking, and we'll be able to arrest you for crimes you were thinking about. Like that, it is such a dystopian, gross version of humanity that he is trying to cast vision for. And a key component to this is to be able to plug humans and call them part of this internet of bodies. So fortunately, 5G is hitting all sorts of hiccups, right? One of them being the disruption of airplanes at the airports. Like you may have seen this back in February of 2022. There's this big battle between the telecom industry and airports, and the airlines are saying we can't land our planes because these signals are disrupting our communication equipment, and our planes can't find where the ground is in bad weather. That's a game changer. Also, I think this was August of last year, the Children's Health Defense won a major lawsuit versus the FCC in the telecom industry. They have ignored since I think it's the mid-90s a mountain, tens of thousands of scientific studies proving the harmful effects of EMF technologies on children and on the planet and on animals and so on. And they have swept it under the rug and said, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Nothing to see here. The science is settled. It's fine. It's just maybe, there's not really any sort of proof. And they were found guilty of completely ignoring all the science. And so that has been another big setback to the 5G movement. So we are making headway on that one. So that's my point, is take heart that pushback is working and we are not powerless. All right. So that's some of the breadth of what I wanted to cover in this presentation. So I want to kind of start shifting to us becoming powerful, right? If we're going to take back our power, it starts with knowing, right? So the core curriculum for month 1 of this module, or our learning month, is a few things. So to understand the Great Deception, we're going to, the documentary Terrain and the book The Contagion Myth are going to reorient how you think about it. And again, question everything. I fought that book, The Contagion Myth, the whole way through, being like, come on, no. And eventually I'm like, dang it, I can't argue this anymore. To understand the Great Poisoning, I try to give you the most digestible, simplest things I could find. So Del Bigtree's interview with Danfa Tachover. She was one of the lawyers that won that case from Children's Health Defense. She's also, interestingly, I put this together later, she was featured near the end of the book, The Invisible Rainbow, and you hear her story and how EMF dramatically ruined her quality of life and the lengths she had to go to get out of that situation. It's fascinating read. So the documentary The Dimming is all about geoengineering and how that is influencing our health and our planet. And then for fasting, for understanding the fastest way I can help anybody heal anywhere is with the discipline of fasting. And so as there's a lecture in there kind of meant to whet your appetite. If you don't know much about fasting or you don't understand the physiology of how powerful of a healing tool that is, that lecture is in the members area for you to watch during our learning month. So I want to also remind you that this responsibility of learning is just that you are part of something bigger, right? You aren't just moving into a better life and trying to protect your health. You're part of shaping this program for people who come after you. So I tell you that because I want to encourage you to lean in and take it seriously, to learn and lean in and do your homework and ask good questions and be a good steward of this opportunity, because the questions that you think of, the pushback you give me, or the questions you bring to our experts, or the ways that you have to slug it out, forming a new way of seeing reality and talking about these things, well, is a service to humanity to be able to do that. So please take that seriously. And then acting powerful, like it's one thing to know things, but acting powerful, at some point we have to apply this knowledge, right? So it starts with application. So I want to look ahead to month 2, or our doing month. And so we're going to basically, we have 3 tracks for you to focus on when we get to, okay, we've spent the time learning to ask the relevant questions we needed to know in order to start to disentangle and form a better paradigm. So the first track is healthcare at home. I'll show you all about that in a second. The second one is fasting for healing. And the third one is to EMF proof your life. So you theoretically could do more than one track, but it'll be a big lift to try to do all of it. So as much of this as you want to do, I'm not going to say you have to wait and don't do anything until the doing month is here, but there's a method to this, and we're using our coaching skills and community building skills to help you methodically do this. So the tracks are roughly going to stick to the following format of just explore, order, network, and practice. So they think of like the doing month is kind of have 4 weeks, right? So the first week you're exploring, okay, what am I doing within this thing? The second week is what do I need? What products might I need to be ordering? Who do I network with to teach what I've been learning, what people in my local community or businesses or so on can help me with this, whether it's finding local practitioners or whatnot. And the fourth week is really just to put these into practice, make the changes, have your home remedy medicine cabinet set up, have done the things to disentangle or to protect yourself and do EMF remediation in your home, whatever those things are. So that's roughly the order of just kind of give you an outline for how we're thinking about the doing month. And so the first track, Healthcare at Home, here are some of what we're going to cover. Again, it's explore, order, network, and practice. And so in Healthcare Reimagined, we're going to have an expert come who we're going to interview about home birth for anybody that's relevant for. We'll talk about medical sharing and how you can have that instead of insurance, and finding your kind of local board of advisors. Who would I be looking for? What questions would I want to ask them? We'll give you ways to think about that. And then restorative healthcare. So several different disciplines, from ozone to combo to water filters and structured water to frequency-specific microcurrents and saunas and light therapies and cleanses, from jabs to molds to metals, etc. These are things that probably have some level of cost to them that you can consider, but to at least be aware of them, to find people around you, to know about healing modalities. This frequency-specific microcurrents is amazing because it works with the electrical system, helps reestablish the current the way the body would need it in order for that healing process to begin. And then some home remedies. So a lot of different ones, from nebulizers with iodine or salt or hydrogen peroxide to chlorine dioxide, homeopathy, some core supplements that I think everyone should have, and strategies for dealing with infection, some herbs and oils, immunity elixirs, enemas, and cold therapy. We're going to talk about all of that, or have things that you can have is just this robust. There's so many other things you can do to be healthy, to keep yourself out of the doctor's office, to know how to handle health conditions at home. And then the second module is fasting. So I really think of that as your untapped healing superpower. There's this quote from Heinz Farner: the strongest stimulation of human self-healing mechanisms of body and soul is fasting. There's nothing that does it better. And so in a world where supply chain shortages may become an issue, having the superpower of fasting, right? Just like, oh, there's no food, fine, I'll just not eat for the next week. That's a superpower. That is a skill we can have if we train our metabolism to do it. Not to mention it's super healing and can unearth so many other good aspects of life, from spirituality to mental focus and so on. And the third track is EMF proofing your life. So that one's really going to be all about assessing your exposure, from your electrical to Wi-Fi and radiation exposure, and then just simply creating a plan of action for how to remediate at home and work and travel and do your best. We all have to exist in this world. We're not going to hide. So what can we do to reduce the body burden and keep our bucket as efficiently purging as possible? So a little bit of housekeeping here. So I really encourage you to not miss the group calls. Come join us on April 12th and April 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern. There's a link in the members area to how to connect with us there. If you have questions, get stuck, just email me, call, whatever. We'll figure out how to make sure you have access to that. But these calls are a chance to meet your fellow participants, to discuss the curriculum. I really want to give you guys an opportunity to say, whoa, this blew my mind. This makes no sense to me. Help me understand. That's a chance to share insights that you may have. There's a collective wisdom beyond what's in my head and Nina's head. And then there's a chance for you to feed us questions that you want us to ask the experts that we have that are going to talk about these different modalities. So the calls are going to be recorded. If you can't attend live, you can watch those. We'll put them up in the members area in the relevant section after they have happened. And then for the expert summit, so those happen once per module. So it'll be April 30th that we're hosting this one. Nina and I are doing recorded conversations the back half of this month. So some of the insights or wisdom we're going to get from these tracks, we're going to take your questions, do some interviews with these people. The second, third, fourth week of April, we'll have those in the members area in the doing month tracks. And then we're also hosting a live 30 minutes. We're asking our experts for about 30-minute slots. So we've got a couple of naturopaths. We've got somebody from microcurrents. We've got somebody who does, obviously we mentioned the home births. We've got a different person who does combo and EMF and cold therapy and different things. So we'll have people around you can ask questions of them. So that's back to my point about be diligent with your study month, with your education. Take the time to learn this so you can come up with the questions and feed them to us if you can't make it. I don't have all the times. We have one expert from Switzerland, another from Australia. So we're going to be buttoning up the times and we'll get you awareness, but it'll probably be That's a Saturday, so morning and afternoon that day. If you're watching this 2, 3, 6 months later, you finally found this program, that should all be unlocked and you can look at it as you want. All right, so let me just wrap up with saying we are so excited that you are here. We have been looking forward to this. So I want to kind of wrap up and give you some key takeaways to just go over what we've learned. So what does it mean to be healthy in the 21st century? Well, first, we're going to have to upgrade our definition of health. We're going to have to get better than soundness and, well, at least you're not sick, right? If we upgrade and have a more respectful, holistic view of what health is, we're going to be a leg up. We also need to question the way those in power attempt to define reality for us. And then the medical system is not going to look for injection injuries or EMF poisonings. They are stuck in a model that says it's chemicals. We're going to do a lab test. We're going to just run you through this battery test. Who of us has not been to or know of someone in our family who's been to the doctor and they don't feel well and they run a bunch of tests and it's like, well, everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Obviously, that's not true, doc, because I don't feel well. But, well, with the tools we have, nothing's wrong with it because they don't have the frame of reference, the paradigm to look for what else could be causing this. They don't understand the microbial. They don't understand synergy. They don't understand nutrition and exercise. They don't understand EMF poisoning. And most of the medical community sure as heck isn't going to say, maybe this is an injury from that injection you got for that experimental toxins that they're putting in you. That won't be a category. So it's up to us to step back and say, what other inputs could be filling our buckets? Our bodies are amazing healers. And our part is to not let our bucket get too full. And when it does, we can thank the body for the feedback. Oh, you're my ally. We're on the same team here. Let me see what I can do to support you. It's our job to do that. Okay. So these are the days to be eyes wide open and to fight and to build. So wherever you are in this fight, whether you're pushing back against the machine or you are working with us and you are building parallel systems and helping wake people up, welcome. We are so glad you're here. So the final encouragement what I want to leave you with is to not lose the plot. And what I mean by that is this program is really about building community. It's about getting together. It's about building the type of life and lifestyles that are so enriching. It's the type of community that we've wanted the whole time and didn't know it, right? So to that end, don't miss Nina's video about building your local sovereignty group. We did our best to put together a template and ideas to get you started, and there's a boatload of resources for activism in there that will help you start to be a voice of truth and hope in your local community and to give you the tools to go do that where you live. All evil needs in order to succeed is for us to just sit by and do nothing. And so may that not be true of us. May we not be guilty of sitting on the sidelines when we know information like what I shared with you today. Now, so this is our opportunity to build a better world. So let's go seize it. To those of you I have not met yet, I am so excited to meet you, to hear your questions, to hear how this information is resonating with you. If you need us, we are here the whole way through. This is a community we're trying to build. So if you don't have a profile set up on our social page, please go do that. Interact, become a face. It's so much easier to interact with you there when we're not meeting together. So welcome to the program. We're thrilled to have you, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. And you guys go have a great day. Talk to you later.